Hello Internet, happy Valentine's Day. Is it Valentine's Day? Is it the day before? I'm not entirely sure. Just wanted to put up a Valentine's Day-ish recipe to give you inspiration, and because that's probably what the YouTube algorithm would really like right now. Veganizing though. When people usually think of Valentine's Day, they usually think like the steak dinner candles. And as a vegan, either you have a terrible Satan steak at home, or you have to go to a restaurant where there are people and crowds. Instead of socializing or going into society, I'm going to make a Valentine's Day-ish meal. So our little vegan Valentine's Day dinner is going to be a mushroom ravioli. And be prepared for terrible jokes in the voiceover at warp speed.
We start by making a well in a bowl with 2 cups of flour, adding 1 teaspoon of salt, then 3 teaspoons or 1 tablespoon of oil to the middle of the well. Water goes in the middle, and we begin whisking to slowly incorporate the dry ingredients. Once it becomes too annoying to whisk, switch to a spoon. You won't be able to stir much more, so flour a surface to knead the dough on. Get out some much-needed frustration by proceeding to beat the dough into submission. I go through a variety of ways to knead dough. There's probably a correct way to knead dough for pasta, but vegan cooking is a cesspool of anarchy. We use margarine instead of butter, for God's sakes. If we're going to stray so far from the basics, we might as well embrace the chaos and do whatever kneading works best for you. Viva la revolution! Keep adding flour as the dough gets too sticky to handle. In total, this dough ball took about 3 cups of flour. Yours may be more or less because of temperature, humidity, and other factors that make dough a fickle little bitch. Once she's smooth, round her out and cover her with plastic wrap or a reusable wax wrap. Question why you're making ravioli instead of something like stuffed manicotti. That would be so much less labor intensive. Let the dough sit and time out for at least an hour while you contemplate your life decisions. Take a cup or so of conveniently pre-chopped sauteed mushrooms. Add most of a block of tofu left over from when you made a single serving of lonely sad person soup the other night. If you were a wise man, you would have put the tofu in the food processor with the mushrooms, but you like to make your life more difficult because you secretly hate yourself. Crush the tofu with your regrets before adding a tablespoon of oregano. Add a pre-sauteed onion and tablespoon of garlic. Add a full 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast because that's vegan crack, and a tablespoon of parsley and 2 sprigs of dried rosemary. The easiest way I found to add rosemary is by cutting down the stem without cutting the stem itself. Mix everything until well incorporated and it has the texture of whatever vague memory you think ricotta cheese is supposed to look like. Take your well-rested dough and pour it onto a floured surface to roll out. Assume that a small rolling pin should work as it's only noodles, then lament in how very wrong you are. Suffer in your own obstinance before switching to a larger rolling pin. You just woke it up from a nap, so she will be a cranky SOB and fight you with every roll. Some call it a well-developed gluten structure. I call it toddler stages. Do this all while attempting to keep the surface floured and create a shape that is vaguely rectangular. And remember to die a little inside whenever the dough sticks to the rolling pin. Significant other likes thicker noodles, which translates to less effort, so I'm rolling these out to be maybe an 1/8 inch thick. Pull out your handy-dandy ravioli form that is obviously a staple for every kitchen and lightly flour the press or the surface of the dough itself. Stretch the dough over the form and falsely guesstimate that the dough is about twice as long. This will be important for when we fold the butt layer of the ravioli. Fill the divots of the form so that they're slightly overfull, because why not? In this case, it was about a tablespoon of mixture. We're using the weight of the filling to stretch down the dough and fill the divots of the form. It helps to use the weight of how much of a disappointment you are to your parents. After all, you are making recipe videos for vegan ravioli on YouTube. You could have made stuffed manicotti. Why, dear God, why did you decide to make ravioli? Now that all the divots are stuffed, we continue our existential crisis by folding the butt over the ravioli. The top of the dough was not floured and therefore sticky enough to stick the layers together once properly squished. Gently caress the air bubbles out of the sides of the ravioli while properly squishing the layers together. Remember how I implied that the rectangle was too short before? Well, I'm going to show you what to do in case you make that mistake. Simply roll out a small section of dough and lay over the naked ravioli. Do a quick preliminary squish before cutting off the excess. Squish better and make sure everything is properly sealed. Now we're flouring a sheet pan to turn the ravioli upside down on to cut apart. This is an honestly unnecessary step. After this, we just floured the top of the ravioli and flipped it onto the counter to cut. Cut off the excess dough around. Remember to save it to repeat this process 3 more times because we're masochists. Cut the ravioli cells apart, making sure to cut between the filling on the sealed portions to avoid any explosions. I'm using a knife. I would suggest using a pizza cutter for ease or a crinkle cutter for aesthetic. This process repeats the correct way at about 650. Please skip ahead to about 8 minutes if your time has value or you just want to get on with your life. Place your sheet pans in the freezer overnight. After they're solid, you can transfer them to a bag to save space. Once they're frozen, the dough doesn't stick together. Take the few you're actually eating tonight and pop them in salted boiling water. They're done about 5 minutes after they start to float. Serve with marinara sauce. Insult me in the comments, like, and subscribe.